Cheeseheads. Get on your feet. It's Curd and Long. Hosted by Sparky, Fifer, and Ryan Horvat.
Welcome in another edition of Curd and Long. Steve Sparky Fifer with you. Wisconsin Sports Daily, weekday afternoons on 1250 a.m. The Fan from 2 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Our guy Ryan Horvat is there as he puts on the screen on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. Rhymes with snot. So there you go.
Nobody can know it's not Horvat, so it's Horvat. I'm just trying to help people, even people that have known me for the last 12 years. Say my. I'm not going to swear. This is a family pod. My name
doesn't know. Are you saying Bart Winkler doesn't know how to say your name, or is that?
Bart does. Bart does.
Good.
All the great broadcasters and people that actually care in this industry got it right day one. Like Tim Allen, boom. He was like, why can't anybody say your name? They shouldn't have jobs if they can't say your name.
They did a great piece on Tim Allen. Matter of fact,
I read it.
Guys. Jim Polzine, Wisconsin State Journal, did a great piece on Tim Allen, who's done Brewer post-game shows in Milwaukee for, I don't know, how long has it been? Almost 20 years, I would think. Yeah. It'll be 20 years in 2006, I think. It'll be 20 years, something in that area. So, yeah. So, great piece on him. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out, Madison.com for that. He is Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight, weeknights, part of the BetQL radio network. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat as well. Let's talk a little bit about the latest report from Josina Anderson yesterday that came out. Free agent quarterback Stephon Gilmore with the latest on his status to me on the phone, to Josina, that is. Quote, there are still some good corners and safeties out there like Justin Simmons and myself that are still not signed. Honestly, I'm still being patient and staying ready until teams see what they have in training camp. But you mean to tell me among 32 teams that there are 64 starting corners that are better than me? I don't think that. If teams want to win, I think they should sign the best players. I know I'm still a starter in this league. I started games last year, but the season doesn't start until September. We got a while, end quote, from Josina Anderson on Twitter, which obviously leads to the really easy point here of should the Packers go sign cornerback Stephon Gilmore, Ryan Horvat?
I wouldn't hate Stephon Gilmore for a depth piece, right? He could still play some football. I mean, he's another year older. He's, an older defensive back. I don't think you want to rely on him to be like your number one shutdown corner, but you have Jair Alexander, who I see is jumping out of planes. I also see that I actually spelled rhyme wrong. I'm an English major. That is very embarrassing. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. There goes my whole joke. Jesus, Ryan, get it together. But yeah, so I wouldn't hate him because that's what we've talked about pretty much for the last 2 months, as far as concerns about this team. I think it's the depth on the offensive line, and I think it's the depth in the secondary. And I feel better about the safeties because you spent $25 million on Xavier McKinney, who's coming off a career year. But yeah, we don't know if Eric Stokes is ever going to be the Eric Stokes that we got year one out of Georgia. He hasn't been healthy since. So I wouldn't hate it. Stephon Gilmore a couple years ago was Defensive Player of the Year. We may never see another defensive back win that award, man. It's going to be a pass rusher, kind of like MVP is now a quarterback award. So hell yeah. I also think I've never heard any stories that he's anything but a great locker room guy too. Could probably pick up the new defensive system pretty quickly, Jeff Hafley's system, or scheme, I should say. So I would be all for it. I would rather do that than last night, my co-host asked me what if the Packers made a deal for Brandon Ayuk? And I'm like, well, what are they giving up for Brandon Ayuk? I don't want to give up a first or second round pick for Brandon Ayuk. If he's going for a fourth round pick, sure. Another depth piece in the wide receiver room. But I would rather have more depth in the secondary than at the flashy position. So I'd be all for it, man. What about you?
Okay, so a couple of different things here. One, unlike the Milwaukee Bucks, who are that second apron, have no money, can only send guys to vet minimum deals, the Packers are not in that range, right? So I looked up on Spot Track teams with salary cap space right now. New England has $41.3 million. Now, this is for the top 51 on the roster. $41.3 million. Detroit, $38.4 million. Washington, $36.2. Las Vegas, $34.1. Arizona, $34. San Francisco has $30 million. And then the Packers in seventh at $26.8 million. Then the Vikings are ninth to round out teams of interest. Eagles are 10th in the NFC. The Niners have a ton of money sitting there right now that they can play with as well. So I don't understand why he's not signed. I mean, if we talk about it from just a Packers standpoint like you did, If Eric Stokes is your third back, aren't you better? If Valentine is your fourth back, aren't you better? If Valentine is your fifth back, aren't you better? And you're not against the cap. Now, I understand, right? You got to pay Jordan Love. I get it. And Jordan Love just did a youth camp in Milwaukee yesterday, football camp, and kind of spoke to the media. And then somebody asked him about the contract, and he got shooed away, telling whoever was handling him at that point, I don't know who it was, apparently was telling the media members, no, not talking about that. So didn't really get anything out of Jordan Love as far as contract situation goes. But having said that, when we start talking about cap space, some of that's going to be used by Jordan Love, I would think. Now, maybe when they sign the extension, maybe there is no new money this year in 24, Ryan, that goes towards it. But if you have $26 million in cap space, wouldn't you think you'd put some new money into 24 to take up some of that cap space while you have it now? Because obviously you're not spending $26 million between now and the start of the season to begin with. Now, Ted Thompson was to have, $5-10 million sitting there throughout the course of the season to sign people if people get hurt, to make a trade if you decide to make a trade, and so forth. But they have more than enough money to go get Stephon Gilmore. He's a vet. If you think you're a Super Bowl contender, which is how Jordan Love is talking and how Jair Alexander and the rest of these guys are talking, Gilmore is a win now piece. He's not a future piece, right? But he's a win now piece. You can get Gilmore for 1 year. Why not go get Gilmore for 1 year? I totally agree. The one thing you don't want to have happen is you don't want San Francisco to sign Stephon Gilmore, do you? You don't want him to be the reason why you lose because he comes with a big play in the NFC when you had more than enough money to get this done yourself, and then later it turns around and bites you in the butt.
Yeah, unless they think he's just like completely washed because he is 33, going to be 34 years old. He did give up 5 touchdowns last season to only 2 interceptions, which was 83rd in the league. He was still he had 8 pass breakups last year, which was top 15. He was at number 13 there. He's clearly obviously not the player that he was a couple of years ago, man, but he's still pretty good in man. He's still a top 40 corner in man. I'm just looking at it. Damn, he gave up 56 receptions last year, which was 79th in the league, and 753 yards were allowed on him receiving, which was 90th in the league. So maybe that's why he's still sitting out there. Maybe
right, but you're going to get him cheap. You're not going to pay a ton of money for this guy.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I personally would do it. I would want more depth. I would want more veterans in that locker room for, like you said, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations this season, not next season or the year after. The Packers aren't the Bears. And also, I want to capitalize and try to win right now just in case Caleb Williams does end up being the real deal and the Bears are good. Because it probably won't be this year, but it'd be in 2-3 years. Lions will fade, I think, eventually once Ben Johnson takes a head coaching gig. Vikings might actually be all right if J.J. McCarthy isn't a complete bust, but I want to take advantage this year. So I'd be all for it, man. Even if he isn't, again, Defensive Player of the Year or top 15 corner Stephon Gilmore, like you said. And the other thing is injuries happen, especially with our team, as we know, and especially on that side of the ball. If Jair goes down, you got to move Stokes. If Stokes is even available to that number 1 corner, yeah, a guy like Gilmore could just step right in. And it's not sure, he's 33, but it's not like there's cheap options. Because if there was a cheap option, a 24, 25-year-old elite cornerback still on the market right now, I think there'd be an issue, or he killed somebody off the field or something, right? So I would do it. Like I said, I would do this. When we do this and we talk about should the Packers sign Julio Jones? I'm no, because he's washed and he can't create separation, when we did that one 3 years ago. But this one, heck yeah.
The other thing too about this is you have Valentine, you have Ballantyne, you got some youngsters in that room. You have 3 young safeties that there's some belief that Bullard or whoever may end up playing slot corner and defending there too. It doesn't hurt to have a veteran corner that's been around the block 100 times to help either translate what Hafley's trying to get done on the defensive side of the ball, to show them tricks of the trade like Charles Woodson used to do to Sam Shields and those guys when they're watching film or whatever. Even if he's not producing necessarily at a Pro Bowl level at corner, the knowledge that he can share with that cornerback and safety room as far as how to read things and so forth, I think it is worth the price of admission if you can get him relatively cheap.
Yeah, completely agree. It comes down to price, right? Yes. I'm not taking the bank for Stephon Gilmore, but yeah, and you would figure it's a vet minimum or whatever you call it in the National Football League.
I'm not paying this dude $10 million a year. To clarify, I'm not doing that.
I don't think anybody will, man. I think he'll be sitting at home all season unless somebody gets like really, really desperate. Like, like the Cowboys last year got hit by all those injuries in the secondary. They lost Diggs, and that's kind of when their season went to hell.
Yep.
Yeah. And shoot, I mean, they had Gilmore there. So,
they sure did.
And sure, like he's older, and last year wasn't his best season as a pro. He was also stuck in Carolina. Like that, so he was on the field a lot. That offense, like if you just watch Red Zone Channel every Sunday, you probably saw Bryce Young and the Panthers like 3 times. I don't think they crossed the 50-yard line. I'm not kidding, man. I don't think they crossed the 50-yard line like 5 times last season. Historically, that might be one of the worst pro football teams ever. And if you're on the defensive side of the ball and it's 3 and out after 3 and out and you're 33, at what point are you just like, the hell with it, man?
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. Ryan Horvat, follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Curd and Long, download. If you download your favorite podcast ad, including that Odyssey app, AUDACY, you can stream BetMGM tonight that way. You can stream Wisconsin Sports Daily on 12:50 a.m. The Fan, weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 the same way. So always good to have that app on your phone. Up next, got to get into Hard Knocks. Now, Wisconsin Sports Daily, every Wednesday, we go over and do our Hard Knocks recap on our show. Charlie Hughes, my producer, and I haven't really touched it at all with Ryan Horvat to this point. Want to get into that with a Saquon Barkley thing and everything else going on. And then we get to the question of, okay, this isn't in season. This isn't watching players necessarily get cut or anything. Is this something you'd like to see as a Packer fan? To see Hard Knocks, in the building from January through June. Is that something that we think would be pretty cool? We'll talk about that next. Curd and Long. Hey, it's Sparky Fifer, 12:50 a.m. The Fan, host of Wisconsin Sports Daily, weekday afternoons, 2 to 5 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Check us out. You can stream us as well on your Odyssey app. It's free. Download it today. Ryan Horvat, him, Trista Crick, Nick Ashu, part of BetMGM tonight, the BetQL Radio Network. If you don't have a radio station near you, you can stream that show live as well on the Odyssey app. In-game betting, looking at second half of games or second parts of games, looking at West Coast games, looking at future bets. They do it all, and they're funny and entertaining too. Check him out on Twitter again at Ryan Horvat. All right, Hard Knocks, Giants in season. Now, for those of you that are like, what the heck? Why are they doing this? Off season, I should say, not in season. Why are they doing this? This was the Giants' idea. So for a year, they were working with the NFL, trying to figure out what could they do to celebrate. I think it's their 100 years. Trying to figure out what could they do that could separate them to make them special, put a spotlight on it. And they came up with this Hard Knocks offseason. So January to the end of June. And this is what they decided to do. Your thoughts so far, Horvat, on how this whole thing is played out? So I love it. I think it's better than the in-season training camp stuff. I absolutely love this. I'm eating it up. Your thoughts?
I used to love Hard Knocks, like have it on the calendar, man. Now I've kind of fell out of love with Hard Knocks, the preseason one. I like the in-season more than I like the preseason one. The preseason one, it's like you get all these fluff pieces, these fake ass stories. It used to be Hard Knocks was good, man. It was an HBO, cutting edge type, you got a real inside look. Now it's what they want to show you, right? The Jets one was so bad. In season, I kind of but no, I like this. If you're a football nerd, I would rather see the evaluation for the NFL draft, for free agency. And I'd like as a football geek, I like that more. I like this offseason. Now, a couple things that I wrote down really quickly that I wanted to hit on with you. It's crazy that the Giants would want to do this because if I had anything to do with that organization, I might be kind of embarrassed right now. We could get to the Brian Daboll, Daniel Jones, Jaden Daniels thing here in a second. But my first takeaway, and I think we actually hit on this a little bit on the pod, but not really. So the running back evaluation. We did talk about it because we talked about when they went through with Josh Jacobs.
Right. Yeah,
and they were
you're right.
Too expensive. But I felt that was me and a couple smart football guys, my buddies, and then me and my brother-in-law who barely ever watches in a room trying to evaluate the running back position. One of the guys is didn't he lead the league in rushing a few years ago? And the dude was last year. Maybe that's what they wanted it to look like. Maybe they were dumbing it down for TV.
No way.
I was not impressed with their, like, I should be doing this for a living. That's the evaluation process. Like, that was kind of embarrassing. And I don't mind what they did, like moving on from Saquon, because at the end of the day, he is a running back, and that's a lot of money. And going with like the money ball type options. Hey, this guy's 1.2, this guy's 2.3. He fits our system. But yeah, I'd be kind of embarrassed. And then also, like, if the Giants did want to show all this stuff, like Brian Daboll coming up, you saw the clip. He's like, yeah, I'm cool. Let's move up for Jaden Daniels. I'm cool moving up for Jaden Daniels, which, like, hell yeah. But if you're Daniel Jones and this is a make or break year and you're watching that at home, what are you saying? Like, I play the most important position in all of sports. I'm supposed to be the leader of this locker room. Everybody in the media already looks at me as a joke. Now my head coach, like, is looking to move on after I just got accepted.
But Shane has been very consistent on one point this whole offseason, which is, dude, if we can't keep him upright, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. We have to fix the offensive line. He's been saying that all offseason. We're talking about Barkley and everything else. Then he went and got him 2 offensive linemen. Now, you can talk amongst yourself about Runyon, but he got him 2 offensive linemen, okay? Then he did say, hey, if we don't get Daniels, then let's get him a weapon that he can throw the ball to. So he wasn't completely necessarily out. So from that perspective, if I'm him, I get someone, yeah, look, we're always looking at options at quarterback. Like, Packers did it. Packers did it twice. And for 3 years, the guy sat behind him. Doesn't mean he was going to come in and start over you necessarily at the end of the day. Doesn't even mean he was ever going to start here. Could have been traded in a couple of years if you play really well. But it's the most important position in football, and we have to protect ourselves. And you didn't have that great a year. So I have to start thinking about things. I guess I wasn't as concerned about the Daniels thing and Daboll saying, oh, yeah, he's worth trading up for, as much as I was the Saquon Barkley stuff. Like, holy crap, man. Like, going into the whole talking about how, I don't want to go through all that stuff publicly like we did last year again, whatever. We're just going to let him go out and explore free agency. The reason I don't like it being said and being put out there is because now the fans feel like, we got some power. We make their life hell and they understand what it's about. We got some power more than we thought we did. You let them think that, the louder they scream and yell, it gets to you, it annoys you, and you just say, to heck with it, I'm done. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Yeah. And I don't think he ever wanted to sign Barkley, Joe Shane. I don't think he ever wanted to do it. Go out there and see what happens and then come back. Meanwhile, Mara? I thought Mara was going to grab his chest losing Saquon Barkley, because you could tell the owner of that team, Mara, was all in on Saquon. And at one point, what was it? First or second episode, he was all like, so what's the offense going to look like if we lose Saquon Barkley? Because that's pretty much it. What exactly is the plan here? That's where I was a little man, I don't know if you want to be saying what you said. You're pretty much saying, they win, the agent and the player, and the public wins. They wore you down, and you don't want to go through it again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and with the Saquon stuff, it doesn't, in the worst part about it is, if you were Team Saquon, wanted to pay him, not only do you lose Saquon, you lose him to a divisional rival in the Philadelphia Eagles. So, what are you trying to sell your locker room? You were a playoff team. You won a playoff game 2 years ago. Last year you had injuries. You missed the playoffs. But are you trying to sell the locker room that, hey, we could actually win this division? Dallas didn't get much better. Philadelphia did, obviously. We lost our best player to them. But that's the other thing, too, is I'm usually anti-paying a running back, but what else do the Giants really have? I do think Neighbors is going to be a stud, but for him to be a stud, he needs a quarterback. They spent money on, the defensive side of the ball. I like their pass rushers a lot.
Burns.
Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau you have now. That's the thing. I don't want them to be a 4-5 win team, because I do think that Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll are really good. I don't want them to be fired. I just think that they might be a quarterback away. But yeah, that's where I'm at too, with the Saquon stuff. Or that was another thing that I noticed too, is kind of how they talked about it. Because that's, and I feel like this could go the same way really for Tampa Bay this year. You made the playoffs, you won a playoff game, but let's be honest. You're not a real threat in the NFC when Baker Mayfield's your starting quarterback. Just like the Giants weren't a real threat to beat anybody other than the Vikings in their 32nd pass defense with Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback. But it's how do you How do you move on from Saquon Barkley when he stays healthy, has a career year, and Daniel Jones when he stays healthy and has a career year, and you make the playoffs with a team that was expected to win 6 games? You really can't. And that's what Tampa did. Now, this year, they probably win 6-7 games, and they have buyer's remorse. So that was another takeaway. I'm with you on that one. It was like, I could tell, like, they did not want to bring these guys back and run it back with this team, but they kind of had to. And, yeah, it's funny because 2 years ago, I was a big buyer in the Giants, in Brian Daboll. And then last year, I completely sold because they brought it back and ran it back. I do think Saquon's going to have a monster year, too, with the Eagles. I think the Eagles might win it all, man. I bet Jalen Hurts to win MVP 14-1. So it's not that only, like I said, that you lose Saquon. You lose him to a divisional rival, and you're going to have to see him twice a year, and he's going to absolutely torch you.
And the fans are going to absolutely torch you if he goes off on you and your defense can't stop him. The other part about this is how the whole conversation came up. They're just standing on the sidelines, and Dan Morgan's like, so you want to give me 2 1s for Burns? And that's how it started. Just casually on the sidelines at one of those Senior Bowl practices. That's how it started, Ryan. And that's the cool part about it, that people don't realize just how casually and flippant this stuff comes up.
Yeah. I mean, well, and with Carolina, it's such a weird team. Remember, like, because they were trying to, well, they blew it up. They traded away DJ Moore. Like, they were like, but remember, they like didn't 2 years ago, they got offered 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks for Brian Burns, and they turned it down. Now they're probably looking at it like, we suck. Brian Burns isn't going to help us win 12, 13 games. We have so many needs, so let's pick up as much draft capital as possible because, oh, yeah, we also just sold our entire 5-year future for frickin' Bryce Young, who's our height, Spark, and might not be any good. So, yeah, I do. That's what I'm saying, though. I love watching that. You know, I wasn't a big fan of the movie Draft Day because I thought it was really cheesy, but I liked, well, yeah, like I would love to like see a real draft day though.
Sure,
like I would love to be in that war room, and we kind of get that even though it's like with a bunch of people because it's the Giants.
Think about it from this perspective. When free agency starts, right? What are you and I doing? We're on our phones, looking at ESPN NFL Network, doing the show, looking at our phones, that's all they were doing. Like, the assistant GM, the personnel directors, they were all sitting in the room just like we are at a radio station, looking at our phones, refreshing, looking at the TV to see what they have. That's how the whole thing happened. The Xavier McKinney news broke, and he's like, holy crap, where does that put him? And he's like going through his numbers. He's like, that makes him second. They never showed any conversations with McKinney.
No,
they show the Barkley one, so I don't know if they never even bothered to talk to McKinney and they were fine letting him go, which I don't understand, man. What is he, 25? Like, how are you okay letting him go that young? He's not old like Barkley by running back standards. That was the thing that kind of confused me and why they didn't show that, because I want to know the reasoning of why you let him go from a Packer fan perspective. Like, okay, so why don't you think he's worth this? Like, what should I be worried about as a Packers fan that you just let this dude walk in his prime?
I don't think anything, to be honest with you, man, because like you said, he's 25 years old. He's coming off a career year. Like, look at his coverage grade, the Pro Football Focus. Like, he was a demon last season on that side of the ball in coverage. But like, again, it goes back to the Giants have many, 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 many needs. That's why almost like the Burn stuff doesn't make sense, bringing him in, because like you should just be trying to like completely rebuild that thing and blow it up. Although maybe they just think, hey, we start with the defense and then we'll get our quarterback next year. I really don't know what the hell the Giants are thinking, but that is a lot of money to pay at that position if you're not ready to win right now or if you're not going to be competitive. You know what I mean? Like Green Bay might think, hey, we're a safety away. We're an elite safety away. And we've seen enough Quentin Rollins and Demarius Randall and Darnell Savage and HaHa Clinton Dix for the rest of our lives. Let's spend that money on this position. Whereas the Giants are like, hey, we got some above replacement level type players that we think could fit into the system just as well, and we could spend this money elsewhere. You know, maybe they're thinking like, hell, that doesn't make any sense.
What?
I thought maybe like they would try to like, I don't know, man. Like, why didn't I love Malik Neighbors, I do, but it's just kind of surprising that they didn't try to move up and get a JJ, or not that they even had to, you know, or that they didn't try to move up and get.
Well, no. We don't know, Yao, because the next episode, now we get closer to draft day.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the fun part was at the combine, he walks over to Elliott Wolf. This was last week's episode. Walks over to Elliott Wolf. Hey, man, can I talk to you for a second? And they're at the combine in Indianapolis. He's like, what's up? He's like, hey, man, I'm just, if you decide that you're going to move this, give me a call first before you move it. And let's see if we can make something work. And Wolf was like, where are you at? 6? He's like, yeah. He's like, hey, man, if I'm being honest, I already got a couple other teams said the exact same thing you're telling me, that I got to get a hold of them, the same way. And I said on Wisconsin Sports Daily last week, if you honestly believe this dude is calling every team that told him to call them while he's on the clock on draft day, you're nuts. Like, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to make an offer and get aggressive if you want to make a move up to get that deal. So what I want to see now, and I think it's next week, I want to see, do they get aggressive? Does Shane get on the phone with Elliott Wolf, the former Packer guy, and say, hey, man, I'll give you this, this, and this to move up to 3? Did they even try? Or did they just sit there and wait to see if Elliott Wolf was going to call him? Like, how much do they want to move up? Because going back to Daniel Jones, Horvat, to what you said, which is, if they don't call Wolf and they don't actively and aggressively try to move up, I feel okay about it. I'm fine. But if I see next week that they're actively trying to move up to 3 to get Jaden Daniels, then maybe I have an issue with it. Because then you're actively trying to get somebody. Like the Packers moved up to get Jordan Love, right? I think that's what made Aaron mad. If they sit and he falls, that's one thing. You moved up to get my replacement. That's what I think pushed Rodgers over the edge.
Oh, completely agree. And then, that was always my point. Like, if Jordan Love falls to you, or like, you know what I mean? Because remember, the Eagles kind of did a similar thing, because Carson Wentz was only a couple years removed from almost being an MVP, and the team won a Super Bowl, but like, clearly he wasn't Carson Wentz anymore. He wasn't the answer. But Jalen Hurts was there in the second round, so they took him. They didn't move up, to get him. So that's definitely what pissed Rodgers off. That, and just them not communicating, I guess, that they were going to take a quarterback, move up for a quarterback, and he was sitting there watching the draft with the rest of us, hoping for a T. Higgins, maybe a Patrick Queen on the defensive side of the ball, since the defense gave up 400 yards to the Niners in the NFC Championship game and got curb stomped. And then he sees Jordan Love, and he's like, what the hell here? But yeah, that's what I want to wait and see with the Giants too. I would have, honestly though, I know some Giants fans, and they were pissed though. They're like, Malik Neighbors might be the best receiver ever. We wanted a quarterback. We would rather take a shot with JJ and he sucks, or take a shot with Penix and he's just not that guy. But that's the only way that you win in football. You need a quarterback, dude. Unless you have Ray Lewis and Ed Reed on the defensive side of the ball, then you could win with Trent Dilfer. But go back to Neighbors, Ryan, real quick. That we talked about that too. He brings Odunze in, and Dable doesn't say anything. Like, ask him a question, yeah. Solid kid, man. Solid kid. He was too square for Dable. Dable didn't want him. He was too perfect. He wasn't buying it. With Malik Neighbors, Dable was like, he knew he had a temper issue. He knew and heard that Neighbors would get all pissy and mad and start yelling and screaming about not getting the ball at LSU. Yeah. Dable, that's who he wanted. He wanted a hothead like himself to be out there screaming and yelling and wanting the ball. He wanted him to compete like him. As he put it, he wants a dog. Odunze's not that. Neighbors is that. He wanted somebody like him. Odunze never had a chance. Even if he was better, he wanted a certain personality to be on that offense with Daniel Jones and in that huddle, demanding and wanting the ball and wanting to be that guy. That's why they ended up with Malik Neighbors at the end of the day, was in that interview process in Indy at the Combine. Dable was all in at that point, and it wasn't going to matter who else was there. If they weren't getting a quarterback, it was that dude. Yeah. I like that though, man, because like those end up being the like look at just the history of wide receivers. I mean, you got Jerry Rice, but then after that, man, it's Terrell Owens, loudmouth, Moss, loudmouth. Yeah. Although not like, dude, you know what's funny about Moss is like they tried to make him into this villain, and like he's just like a country boy that likes hunting and fishing and like racing. Even, like, you watch even the roast of Tom Brady, and it was like he was just like kind of PG compared to everybody else. I think Moss just seems like a really good dude, and maybe he was just, I don't know. Maybe he just got a bad rep. I wish the Packers would have. No, I don't, because you would have had to trade Aaron Rodgers. But man, that was one of the biggest heartbreaks in my life when they didn't go get Randy for Brett. But yeah, I like that about Neighbors too, though, man. Like those are the guys that you want. You really do. I do think Dunze is going to be awesome too, though, even though he's mild-mannered and quiet. What about Marvin? Do we even know anything about Marvin Harrison, really? Because like he didn't do any combines or workouts? He was. They interviewed him too. I don't remember
he
that
came
part.
in, he interviewed with the Giants as well.
I
And he
gotta
pretty
watch
much
that
just said that, hey, man, I'm getting ready for the NFL season. Da. I'm good.
That's
I'm
right.
not working out,
That's
whatever.
right.
So
Yeah,
they did interview him.
Yeah,
And-
that was kind of a shorter clip. Yeah, that's right.
But again, it goes back to Odunze. Heel square too, right? I mean, he was molded by a dad that was super quiet, kind of to himself, and Marvin Harrison, not like Owens, not like these other cats, just went out there, did his business. So he's kind of like a perfect square guy too. Again, that's just not what Dable wanted. I'll go back to Moss for a second.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, and I might not because I'm old, but I believe the story I heard was the Packers didn't want to give up a second-round pick for Moss, and that's why that deal didn't happen, because Ted didn't want to give up a 2. It had nothing to do with Rodgers. He didn't want to give up a second-round pick. I believe that was the story on that whole thing about why Moss didn't happen. I got to check, but
I always thought it was. I thought Rodgers.
To do with
I thought
Rodgers.
that they wanted Rodgers to be
Nope.
part of the deal, and Green Bay was like, no. That's it was a. I think you might be getting confused with the Tony Gonzalez trade offer, and it was a 3rd-round pick they didn't want to part ways with, that Ted didn't want to give up.
I'm going to go back and find out one way or the other. I don't remember. Yeah. I do know Hawk and Marshawn Lynch, that was a rumor there, and then they played each other that week, and that never got done either, and they held on to A.J. Hawk. All right, take a quick time. I'll come back on the other side. I want to ask Ryan real quick, do you want to see the Packers do this? If they come and say, Packers offseason next year, are you in? Are you out as a fan? Would you want to see them do this? Back after this, Curd and Long. Download on your favorite, wherever you download your favorite podcast. And, of course, Odyssey app, AUDACY. That's where you can stream my show. You can stream Ryan's show as well. Back after this. Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, Curd, and Long. Check out Wisconsin Sports Daily weekday afternoons 2 to 5 on 1250 AM The Fan. Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight, part of the BetQL Radio Network. Follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. Simple question to wrap this bad boy up. Last podcast of the week. Mr. Horvat, would you want to see the Packers do Hard Knocks offseason?
No. Like, selfishly, to see my team on Hard Knocks, sure, it would be cool. But dude, have you ever heard one player or one team like, hey, we really like that? That helped us.
This is the first time they've ever done it in the offseason, so we don't know the Giants' feedback as of yet. I'm not talking in training camp.
I promise you don't end well for the Giants this year. I'm gonna help you out there. I'm sorry, I had.
But that's because of what they said. But I mean, was it intrusive? Like, did they find it bothersome? Like, that type of stuff is kind of what I want to know.
You know, shoot. Maybe I do, just because like I sometimes think Goot's an idiot, even though he's clearly like been on fire these last couple of drafts and whatnot. And I've always called like Mark Murphy a doofus, and I don't really know like what Russ Ball actually does. I do, but I don't. So I would actually, I would. You know what? Take that all back. I would like to see it because I want to see who actually like is the brains of the operation. I'm guessing it's Goot. I want to see like what Murphy like actually had say in, what he didn't, because you know, he's a football guy, but also like he's the guy that's building Titletown and all the attractions and all the fun stuff. So I kind of would actually. And I would also like to see, even though we know what they're looking for in the draft, I would love to, although I would have loved it to be like 3, 4, whatever the hell years ago, like Hard Knocks preseason, them selecting Jordan Love. I would love to be in that room. Remember? Because then they cut to like Matt LaFleur.
Because that was COVID. Everybody was separate. LaFleur was at his house. Yeah,
LaFleur was at his house with his kids. And
right.
His kids were like giving him that look like, you're going to really piss off Aaron Rodgers?
Yep.
You seen T. Higgins? No. But that's, yeah. Now I feel like it would be kind of boring because it would just be like, hey, what guard or tackle do we want?
No.
What linebacker do we want? But like 3-4 years ago, that would have been sweet when Rodgers crab ass was there.
Next year is the year to have it. And in fact, if I was the NFL, I would have made them have it because they're doing the NFL draft in Green Bay next year. So you get to see the NFL come in, set up the conversations that happen of where they want the stage and everything else, how they're going to have the bicycles involved. Are the prospects going to ride a bicycle up to the stage when they get their name called? That's what should happen. And have a little kid from each city representing them walk up with their favorite teams just for the first round and do it. Whatever the case may be, you get all of that, right? Murphy's retiring next year. So the transition to Ed policy and them having conversations as Ed gets ready to take over next summer, you get all of that goes along with worth it. Love will be a newly paid guy or whatever the case may be. You're going into a draft with all these offensive weapons. Hafley's first year on defense. And again, they have salary cap money, so they're going to have some cap room, I think, going into next year. I don't know. To me, this is the year to do it. Just for the NFL draft behind the scenes, to me, it makes it all worth it.
I mean, again, selfishly, I would like it. I just feel like even though nothing's going on the field, there aren't games being played. It's not during the regular season. It's all during the summer. It's all about during the draft evaluation process, NFL draft, like you said. But I feel like it could be a distraction. Funny story on that, I think just any time there's cameras, I remember in high school or even in grade school when I would go to practices with my grandpa Gordy, when he was still coaching at Joliet Catholic. Everybody knew that Joliet Catholic never threw the ball and they run double wing. So if you're the quarterback, you're under center. But anytime Channel 6 or, CLTV or Comcast Sportsnet would come to do their football previews on us, he would have the defense running a 3-4 nickel. And then on the offensive side of the ball, the quarterback would be taking snaps from shotgun and we'd be going 5 wide. And they'd be JCA with a revamped offense. Week 1 hits. Quarterback ain't throwing a pass. He's under center. We're running the ball 55 times. But It would be funny because my grandpa got the biggest kick out of that because he hated cameras being there. And this is my grandpa coach in high school, not when he, moves on to the collegiate level. So I always just thought that was funny. And I would always think about that, watching Hard Knocks. Man, how pissed is Sawa that he's trying to coach his football team right now and he's got these cameras right in his face? Because that's the thing. With football coaches, man, you hear it. Every rep is so important. There's a reason why Nick Saban in Alabama always won national championships. They would do it until they got it right. And it's hard to do that. And also with football, man, it's tough because you don't want to show a whole lot.
Absolutely.
That's the problem with Hard Knocks. That's why I agree. I would rather have this stuff, because it's not as fluffy than the training camp. Because you think the Jets are going to be all right, we're running this and we're running that. So the Bills could just see it. No.
But if you do it, then you're done and you're X'd out for however many years, guaranteed. Losing season, not whatever happens, you never get forced into this again for so many years. And you just tell them, look, we'll do Hard Knocks, but we want a majority of this to be around the NFL draft. The preparation of it, going through it, draft day itself. You can have cameras in the room on draft day for us. I don't care about that. The whole tear down of it, the transition to policy, that's what we want a majority of this to be about. That's what kind of would be my focus. You can have a little free agency, but for the most part, I want it to be around the draft. If you're good with that, let's go. I don't see how the NFL and Hard Knocks wouldn't want to be a part of that. They've never done anything showing you how the draft works, how it gets set up, the initial conversations, all the people that get into it. I think it would be brilliant. I think it would be great. He is Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight, part of the BetQL Radio Network. Check him out weeknights with Trista Crick and Nick Ashu. Follow him at Ryan Horvat. Follow me at Sparky Radio, Wisconsin Sports Daily, weekday afternoons, 2 to 5 on 1250 AM The Fan. Download this podcast on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app. Also check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good one. Toodles.